Good afternoon. I'm Chris Logan. I'm the Director of Healthcare Industry Strategy for VMware. In my role, I lead a team of former C-level executives who all have provider-side experience, and we really act as a trusted advisor to our customers. And by our customers, I mean not just the folks that buy VMware software and solutions, but also back into VMware, into the BUs that develop this software, to marketing to make sure we get the message of healthcare strictly across. And more importantly, making sure that we're moving the needle forward on patient care issues. You can reach me on Twitter at LoganCM77.
Hello, I'm Max Mortillaro, and I'm here with Gestalt IT today to talk about healthcare and VeloCloud. I'm working as an IT analyst for Tech Unplugged, and you can find me on Twitter at Dark Avenger. So, Chris, it's great to talk to you today. VeloCloud is something that I've been following for quite some time already. And one of the things we wanted to discuss was around healthcare. Healthcare is and has always been a very critical part of the, let's say, infrastructure that we see in a country. And we see that especially today, healthcare is facing probably a lot of challenges, a lot more than it is facing usually. You seem to be pretty much into that. Can you tell us a bit more about what you're seeing today in healthcare? What challenges are you seeing?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a great question. Well, healthcare is very dynamic in nature. If you think about what healthcare is trying to accomplish, it's really an improved outcome for a population. So taking care of the patient first. And if you think about where healthcare has come from and where they're going to, healthcare has a very keen focus on consumerism, right? Meeting that customer where they need to be met in their care journey. So using the tools and techniques from the past really isn't solving the problems for healthcare today or for the future. So organizations are really grappling with how do they meet that patient where they need to be met, but at the same time, balancing the needs of the providers who are providing that care, all while taking care of larger populations, right? And that's causing a lot of dissonance on the other end too, is because healthcare is very expensive. If you think about what the United States spends in GDP alone, almost 18% of our GDP goes towards healthcare services. Have we seen the improvements of what we're spending? No, I don't think that we have. So the real focus is on changing how we're reaching that patient, improving the quality of care, and reducing that cost by reaching more and more people and taking care of populations.
Mm-hmm. So since you're working for VMware and VeloCloud, can you tell us a bit more about how SD-WAN is trying to help those challenges that you are highlighting?
Well, I think I want to frame it in the lens of what really is SD-WAN and healthcare and why it matters so much. And, and I look at it from how healthcare services have been provided in the past. If you've always been so focused on just treating patients within the four walls of your hospital, it's pretty simple, right? You can ensure that your LAN works and technology is being delivered at point of care seamlessly, right? You can do that today. It's not hard at all. When you start to think about where healthcare needs to go and reaching those patients wherever they may be in their care journey or in that care continuum, you're now extending those services well beyond the four walls of your hospital. Why SD-WAN becomes so critical in that model is because now I'm taking a service where I knew how it operated in the four walls and I have to push it someplace else, whether that's a branch office, whether that's an ancillary facility, whether that's even in the patient home. Now extending those services out becomes very tricky because you have issues with your wide area network. More importantly, you have unencumbered cost, right? And we've only seen applications grow by leaps and bounds. So healthcare delivery is not just the applications in the data center anymore. Part of that data center and part of the operating model has become the cloud. So whether that's applications being delivered via the cloud or applications that you're consuming via somebody else's cloud, you now have to factor all those points of entry in with that technology to provide that patient care. Where VeloCloud comes in and helps people out is really in this alignment of supporting the growth of those applications, creating agility within the network, and simplifying those implementations while making sure you're delivering high performance. High performance applications and high bandwidth applications are the norm in healthcare. So getting those in the hands of the practitioners that need it most, or more importantly, directly to the patient, is critical for the success of healthcare delivery.
So one thing as well is that patient information is extremely important and extremely confidential. Do you think that SD-WAN is also helping with the security aspects of, let's say, you protecting that information?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Because if you think about how the WAN's growing and what we're starting to see, especially in the SD-WAN space from a virtualization aspect, right? So why it's so important is we're freeing the WAN from the constraints of the hardware itself. It's no longer bound to the hardware. And if I'm putting in software, I have greater flexibility and accessibility and capabilities that I can drive into that software. Security is just one piece of that puzzle. So if you think about what I can do with advanced routing capabilities, maybe my switching or load balancing, firewalling, now I'm starting to bring those services into software and creating extensibility and flexibility with how I can deliver that. That is a key differentiator, right? That is significant, especially as we're starting to look at more healthcare delivery into the home. Because patient information is so critical, and I'll say not in context of what the data actually is, but how the data is being used to create an outcome for that patient, right? And the safety of that patient, security has to be built into that. It cannot be bolted on. It's got to be a part of the DNA of the platform. So where we're going in the future is really this concept of a secure access service edge, right? And I know that's another buzzword that we're starting to hear in the industry, but the truth in the matter is that we're bringing those security services directly into the software to be delivered seamlessly so you can operate it as you would operate normally today.
So you just talked about how security is one of the key benefits of using SD-WAN in healthcare. Do you see other benefits which can apply to SD-WAN in that vertical?
Oh, absolutely. So I just think about, as an IT practitioner, having done it for over 10 years on the side of healthcare delivery organizations, standing up a LAN and extending that out to your branches, it's an operational nightmare. It's tough. And you're then beholden to a circuit delivery mechanism that should be really a commodity item at this point in time. So in this future state where we see SD-WAN really taking off is that you do get to commoditize those circuits and how you deliver those services, right? So it simplifies the operation. More importantly, now I can stand another organization up with zero touch or slight touch deployments, right? I can send a device out, have somebody plug it in, very simple instructions, and then I configure it from a distance. I don't have to send a body to it anymore. That creates a great opportunity for how healthcare is being able to deliver these types of services out to the edge to meet that patient where they are, or even drive services to that new employee and that new model where that employee is working. And again, if you think about it from the reliability, the serviceability, assuring application performance, I'm getting much more validation and visibility in the software than I was from just my hardware suite alone. So a lot of key benefits there, most importantly with the operational model that you can put in place, but also the visibility that you get from it and the cost that's associated with it. I'm lowering the cost of actually operating this environment.
That's absolutely right. What we see usually is that when you're deploying networks and you have to manage everything manually, I mean, based on what I've experienced, it's really very tedious, and maintaining configurations, I mean, large configurations across a broader organization and across many geolocations is almost a nightmare. So that's one of the things that that SD-WAN is also helping to solve, I guess.
Absolutely. Completely agree with you.
Okay. Do you want to tell us a bit more about some use cases that you've been working on? Because I guess that every organization has something very particular in the way they're approaching SD-WAN.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think what's very pertinent for us, especially with what's happening in the world right now with COVID and the expansion of the pandemic globally, we saw a lot of healthcare entities and organizations shift how they were doing patient care, primarily to satisfying the needs of those COVID patients that were coming into their organizations. So we were seeing SD-WAN really being used as the next level or the next phase of how remote work was being done, right? If you think about how remote work was done in the past from a healthcare organization perspective, I maybe had a couple hundred connections if I was a large organization of people that were conducting some work in the off hours or people that actually did some work from home. When the pandemic hit, that changed the game completely. So we went to a completely remote workforce. Well, the VPN concentrators, that hardware that everybody relied on so heavily to drive those connections, they couldn't keep up. We saw a lot of organizations reach out to us and say, how can we change remote work? We already run a virtual desktop infrastructure today. I want to be able to extend that seamlessly, but I need to do it securely. And I need to give that employee the same look and feel that they have today if they're in the four walls of the hospital. SD-WAN was a perfect use case for a lot of these organizations as they were transferring those employees from the four walls of the hospital into the four walls of their home to do their work. So that was a huge opportunity and use case for us. We continue to see that one grow and grow over time. we're now starting to see SD-WAN also as the backbone for delivering healthcare services to those employees. So now it's not just that back-end employee like your biller or your coder who has to have access to certain systems. We're seeing SD-WAN being put out on the edge to deliver a remote experience for the employee for clinical purposes like remote radiology, remote cardiology, so on and so forth, right? And a lot of other service lines are starting to explore this thing as you see healthcare starting to change, is that I can now do behavioral health services quite simply and ensure that connectivity. I can stand up new things like a stroke center, and I can use the quality of service components within SD-WAN to ensure that I see that person clearly so I can make a diagnosis to make sure that they get the care necessary. So that's just a couple of those use cases. I think we're starting to see telemedicine also start to play in here as well. If you think about the Internet of Medical Things and how do we treat patients in their home, we're starting to look at the consumer IoT devices as entry points for data. How do I ensure that that data comes back securely and that data is exactly where it's coming from? This becomes one of the key components to being able to drive that data back into a healthcare organization to provide that best care and outcome for that patient.
Yeah, and so as this approach to healthcare starts getting more and more decentralized, there's also one thing we need to take care about is that we have a certain amount of bandwidth. Bandwidth is finite, right? And probably we also need to make sure that if we have patients at home which are being monitored for certain conditions, we need to make sure that their critical data gets priority in terms of traffic to the organization, right? Because you don't want to have someone heart condition drop because somebody is downloading MP3 files. I mean, okay, MP3 is old school, right? But you see what I mean?
Yes.
If somebody's streaming Netflix, that's a big challenge. So is SD-WAN helping to solve that challenge?
Yeah, absolutely. So you summed it up very nicely. So let's just take a look at my home in particular, right? I have 4 children. At no point in time is there not some device consuming some form of bandwidth in my house, right? So what we're enabling people to do is give priorities to specific applications to ensure mission critical services continue on. So I can have 3 Xboxes running behind streaming Fortnite and whatever else is going on. And at the same time, I could potentially monitor that patient by shaping the packets through software, ensuring that quality of service, that gets the priority. That increases an opportunity for healthcare delivery, right? And I can still have all the noise in the background and not lose a single packet necessary to provide that best care. You know, and I joke, when we all moved home, how was your experience on Zoom when you first got into your house and when you have 5 other people running something in the background? It was horrendous, right? Being able to shape the packets to give Zoom the intended quality of service it needs allows us to have a great conversation back and forth without any lag or jitter.
I think it would be really great if we would be able to have some kind of VeloCloud or SD-WAN-like capabilities with our providers that will really help make our lives a bit better. So, Chris, thank you very much. I think this was an absolutely great conversation we had here about SD-WAN and healthcare. Thank you very much, and I hope to engage with you very soon again. Thank you.
Fantastic, Max. I appreciate your time. I'm really excited about what we are going to be able to do with technology and taking care of patients for the future. So thanks again for your time as well.